Spoiler alert, this podcast will be including information regarding the most recent episode of The Wheel of Time on Amazon. Haven't seen it yet? Go watch, then come back.
Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.
Before the Amelin seed arrives?
All right, Catfish, you ready?
Yep.
So at the count of three, we're going to say harmony in harmony. We're going to sing it out. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Harmony.
And after the Amelin seed arrives?
All right, Catfish, you ready?
Yep.
So at the count of three, we're going to say harmony in harmony. We're going to sing it out. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Harmony. Oh man, Lauren Balfe could learn from us.
Hey, that's you.
Go check it out, man.
It's good. You like it?
I liked it. Yeah, it's even more loose than the porn one.
Welcome to Bustin' Blockbusters. This is a podcast dedicated.
Yeah.
The Wheel of Time currently, and we are actually talking about season 1, episode 6, The Flame of Valon. So, folks, if you haven't seen that episode, don't be spoiled by our stuff. Be sure to watch it and then come back and watch us on YouTube or check us out on the podcast in audio form. And I am just so happy to be here. It's 2 weeks in a row that we've got a very special guest. First of all, I am your daughter of the river. You can call me Double M or Matt Murdock or Hey You if you wish. But my first guest, he's back once again. He's clever as a pike, and he'll help Boy Scouts everywhere cheat with their knot badges. It's Catfish.
Hey, so excited to be back. I don't know. Do I need to go into my history? It feels like some of our listeners don't know who the hell I am.
And they're happy for that.
Well, no, they want to know who I am. So please allow me a brief 10-minute discussion about my...
Denied, because we have to move on to the fellow who is as strong as the tides, even though he will burn your house down after putting a dragon fang on the door. It's Bubba.
Guys, I'm so excited to be here to talk about Amazon Prime After Dark. Bow, 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 bow.
Folks, you can see how this conversation is going to go this evening. It's great.
Did somebody order a pizza with a side of Ace Sedai?
This conversation, we're all going to go to completion.
Folks, we want to get straight into the talking about this episode because we're all excited. And we want to give our ratings for the episode. Who wants to go first? Catfish, would you like to go first?
I'll do it. You know, last week I said I was going to only rate this series, every episode, on the triple S.
The triple S?
Yeah, the sci-fi or sci-fi scale. Based on whether the quality of the performances, show, plot, acting was better or worse than a show on sci-fi versus sci-fi. But you know what?
So you're cheating again. That's what you're saying.
I like this episode so much, I'm actually going to put it on the triple M scale. I'm going to give it 8 Moiraine's masterful bon mots out of 10.
Whoa, 8 out of 10. You must have loved this episode.
Okay, there are lots of things about this episode that I really dug. I mean, it starts off with Siuan's dad saying he's leaving a kid without a father and a home, and he says, "Don't you worry about me." Yeah, you are the one we're going to worry about, bro. I also dug Moiraine tonight. She was crushing fools left and right. I dug the storyline. Really seems like we're going somewhere. Now, the reason why I didn't give it a higher rating, I mean, I will go higher, is, you know, and I don't want to be too mean because there were things I could say that are mean, but I really don't want to be mean. I'm just going to say I don't like the music. I really don't like it. My question also is, did they shoot this on film? Because if not, why not? They're spending $10 million an episode. Shoot it on film development. If they are shooting it on film, why doesn't it look like it? It still looks too cheap for such a big, important show. I
Dang.
also will say that there are things in this show that the show makes a big deal of that don't seem like a big deal to me, a non-book reader. Last week we had the funeral. This week, the banishment ceremony, which as a non-book reader, I'm like, yeah, this was the plan. This is their plan. And also, she's not safe here. So get her out of there. But they made it this real huge, like, she's crying, Schwann's crying, like, I just don't get why it was such a big deal. Okay, people turn their backs, but like this was the plan. So I imagine that in the books that there was a lot more background and history, or there were other things going on. I mean, I know they're not going to see each other, but like in the end, basically she's saying, you are banished and you can never come back until I say you can come back. So because of
Yes.
that, it didn't seem like a big deal to me. So there are things that I'm digging more about the show. There are things about the show that I'm still not, they're just not landing to me as well as they could. So blah, 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 blah. That's me. What about you, Bubba?
Well, Catfish, 8 out of 10 is still really high.
It's still
very
really high.
exciting. There's something wrong with me. Maybe it's because I watched the episode.
Well, I knew that.
Before I watched the episode, I saw people online saying that this episode was incredible. It was great. And maybe they got they raised my expectations so high. So I'm only going to go 6 triple Bs out of 10.
Triple Bs.
Bees.
Well, as we all know, when you're blue bathing and getting bickered at, it's not fun. So blue bathing bickering is not fun. And this episode really got me to the point where I really am interested in this show, but I see where, as a non-book reader like Catfish, it's having some issues. And I'm going to give this what I like to call some double C.
Double C.
Double C.
Constructive criticism. Once again,
Oh,
I
okay.
like this show. I want to dive into this world.
Mhm.
But earlier this week, I rewatched the beginning of episode 1. And it was what I was looking for is, give me what I should be, what is the goal? Give me the idea of what this show is. And so I started thinking about things. So Lord of the Rings. There's a million things you can know about Lord of the Rings, but you can watch it, enjoy it, as long as you know this ring is evil. We got to destroy the ring. Like that's what the hero's goal is. Okay, we're going to destroy this evil ring. Very simple. There's a million other things you could talk about it. It's very simple. Earlier this year, we podcasted about Only Murders in the Building. There are a million, tangent suspects, all these things. What's the gist? Well, somebody killed Tim. Let's figure out who did it. Okay, once again, it's like a one-sentence simple thing. Succession. Terrible adult children battles to succeed their terrible father's company. Okay, Breaking Bad. Dying guy cooks meth to get money for his medical bills and his family. Like these things
Skip ahead.
Well, okay. Thank you, Matt. I was trying to write a sentence like that for the Wheel of Time. And I was like, we need to find the Dragon Reborn so we can train them and defeat him. And so like that was, I guess, what I thought, okay, that's what the show is. But then in this episode, they're like, okay, let's go kill the Dark One. And I'm like, aren't you going to train these people? Of the 5 possible Dragon Reborn candidates, Matt and Rand, we've never seen them touch the one power. Egwene touched it and was so weak with her flame that it got mocked. Okay, Perrin has touched it and called some wolves, and Nynaeve apparently has a lot of power. But we're just going to go try to take down the Dark One with these guys without any training? I mean, that does not seem logical to me. And so instead we're just going to assume they can kill them when they get there. So there are things about this show that are tough. And then I also just want to get to this one point. You could put me on the clock for 2 minutes. I'm going to go here. When I watched that first episode, after the first episode, I said on this podcast, Matt, I said, the show is telling me that the hero of this show is Egwene. She's like character A, and then Rand, because he likes her, is character B. And we're going to focus them on their journey and their 2 friends who also might be dragons. Like that was what the show told me. Here at the end of episode 6, this show is about Moiraine and some people she finds because of her goal, what she wants to do. I like Moiraine, I want to follow her. I trust her. I believe her. But what's weird is this is like Lord of the Rings if the lead character was Gandalf instead of Frodo. This is like Game of Thrones as if the lead character in the first season was Littlefinger instead of Ned. AKA, it's about the person who knows everything, not about the newbie trying to find out the mystery like Ned was in Game of Thrones, or the newbie who's like, I haven't left this village. I don't know the world. I don't understand what this really means, like Frodo. And so it's just a weird experience. I have loved certain episodes, and yet this episode, which so many people loved, left me cold. I'm sorry I went so long, but that's just my thought.
There we
Matt,
go. We're losing our loyal listeners.
We are.
This is what you gave me a hard time about last week, being so hard on the show, and you are just crushing it tonight.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Bubba, I can't blame you, because one of the things that I find very frustrating for non-book readers watching some of this stuff is the fact that Rafe, as a fan of the books, has changed things, and most of the book readers that I've seen have been very accepting of those changes, but he is taking time to emphasize a lot of things that are important to books. But even today, in this episode, the way that special attention was paid to Swan and Moiraine in this episode, that's book 3 stuff, man. You don't even find out any of that until book 3. The stuff that was in Tar Valon doesn't occur in Tar Valon. It happens in a place called Camelin, and it happens at another place in the second book. So there's a lot of things that are being brought forward in order to pick up the pace of the story to get us to an exciting. I personally believe this season should have been a 10-episode season instead of an 8-episode season. I think you wouldn't have been as frustrated with these sudden changes, because you would have seen more of a gradual change of what the mission is and who the mission is. As far as them all of a sudden having to do this thing with the Dark One, nobody wants to do this. They both are very hesitant about having to do it, but it's because he is at his weakest point that they have no choice but to strike now, or they may never get another chance again. That's basically what Swan tells Moiraine, even though Moiraine has a lot of problems with the way that she is having to put these people's lives in her own hands, if only one of them is the actual dragon. Now we hear that Moraine's been hearing these stories all over the place, that it may be all 5 of them in some way. And that,
I hope it's
that's
not
another
Matt.
new wrinkle. Well, they're missing out. Matt was the only smart one. He said, go in there, and hell no, I ain't going in there.
I agree.
But I agree with you, Bubba. I think it deserves some criticism, especially from a non-book reader standpoint. I'm able to appreciate it a little more from being a book reader and falling apart for seeing Swan's backstory, falling apart for seeing them having to use the oath rod, which, if you recall back in episode 2, Moiraine told Egwene that when they swear their 3 oaths, they do it on this oath rod, and that prevents them from being able to break it. And so for the 2 of them, there's no chance that they can see each other until a point where Swan can make it feel that it's safe for Moiraine to come back and say, hey, you can come back. And that takes extraordinary circumstances in order to keep their mission secret from everybody else, which is what they've chosen to do for whatever reason. This means goodbye for them. I was totally into the emotion of that.
Yeah, but for me, I didn't. Because when she says she essentially says until I say you can come back, and when you do that, it especially since this was Moraine's idea, it feels like this is the smart move, and they're getting over on everybody else. Not that this is some horrible thing. I mean, if they were going to have emotion about it, I would have thought there would be more emotion when the 2 of them are together. But they made it seem like this whole ceremony they were going through was something horrific, and not that they were leaving each other.
And the music and the way it's filmed and edited makes it feel like a permanent thing, where in the back of your head you hear, well, once she says you can come back, this isn't a permanent thing,
right?
And this is what she wants. This is
right. Yes,
this is like a performance. This is like a performance she's doing for the other Aes Sedai.
Right, and if it's a performance, I don't understand the sweeping, the music and the way it's being filmed is telling me that this is a horrible big event, when the only thing that seems really important is that this is kind of sad between her and Swan, and that we could have seen the night before when it was just the two of them. In fact, both of them having this emotional reaction during the ceremony, it's kind of like might be a giveaway to other people, because mothers shouldn't feel so bad about it unless there's some big history that we don't know anything about. They haven't taken time for us to like know why this is so horrible.
Catfish. When all the women turned their back on Moiraine, I thought we were going to see her give a sly smile to be like, okay,
Yeah,
our plan worked.
This is her plan.
But Catfish, you brought up something that I think is very interesting, and that is, as I like to do, what I like to call episode metrics. It's one of the things, kind of like yak, yards after catch or whatever. Episode metrics. And I think that one metric to pay attention to that you caught on to is the ITSS HIIT. Not to be confused. Don't put that together too much, folks. But that's the. I think Swan Chance harrowingly is in trouble because there's a lot of still politics going on there with Liandrin. There's still a lot of things where she's telling Moiraine that she's, that this puts her in a terrible position. She can't play favorites with Moiraine, and so they've had to go through this whole thing. And I think that you're onto something, that people might pick up on the fact that something was happening there. By the way, I gave it 8.5, what I like to call double P's out of 10.
Oh, double
P's.
Yeah, that's painting portals. You asked what that painting was, Bubba, a couple of podcasts ago, and now you know. It's what they call a terre angrial, which is it's an object that can do something within the one power, in this case being a little transporter mechanism, but they can only do one single thing. So there were a lot of theories out there that it was going to be a terre angrial, and I poo-pooed on all of them until because I couldn't remember anything like this from the books. I don't think it's in the books, but there are terre angrials in the books that can do just one thing through the use of the one power. Some of them have to be activated by an Aes Sedai, some of them don't. But I really love this episode, guys. I love seeing Swan's backstory because it represents the pain that nearly every girl who ends up going to the White Tower at a young age goes to. They're really never allowed to see their family again. They go through this whole training bit where they're there. I thought that was very emotional. I loved the dragon fang that was on the door. Catfish, I think also, I was so happy when I heard Egwene say that Child Valdo will never hurt anyone again, because that means he's alive for certain.
Oh, hell yes.
Or at the very least, the wheel of time will bring him back, because the wheel weaves what the Child Valdo waves.
Oh, dun, dun, dun. Folks, we've been babbling and babbling and babbling and babbling and babbling and babbling, and I have no idea how many B's that is, but we want to hear from you, because what we say is just what we say. What you say matters to us. So please send your tweets to @BustBlockbuster or to @double the letters PHQ. That stands for Podcast Headquarters. You can also go to mattsaudioblog.com, mattsaudioblog.com. You can find all of the links there, or be sure to check out doublepmedia.com. That's the word double, the letter P, media.com. That's where you can find all of the links for all of their stuff, all of the many podcasts that you can hear Bubba and Catfish talk about much better without me interrupting them for things. And you can also send emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com. And be sure to subscribe to the YouTube page. That's just youtube.com/C/ the word double, the letter P, media. And you will find them there. Also, if you send me @BustBlockbuster a tweet with a screenshot of you being subscribed to any Double P podcast, you'll be entered into a contest to win a Wheel of Time t-shirt on me.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah,
wait, will it be on you and then you'll take it off your back? Because I prefer mine washed.
Okay. A clean, freshly delivered from Amazon official Wheel of Time t-shirt of your choice. I'm paying for it. How about that?
Game worn.
Yeah. Because you might hate me more than you hate Rand if you were wearing a t-shirt that I had just worn, especially with the smell that would come on with it. So,
on this t-shirt, it's one size fits Loyal.
Oh.
Oh.
We're doing this for our loyal listeners, our double
There you
Ls.
go. There you
Yes.
All
go.
right, but speaking of our loyal listeners, I'm going to introduce this because I want the hammer. I want the hammer position. We always have to talk about Rand haters, as we
Yeah.
know there's a lot of discussion back and forth. People hate Rand, justifiably so. But in this episode, who hated Rand the most? Matt, who hated Rand the most in this episode?
Well, for me, it's got to be Moiraine, right?
Mhm.
Because here's a guy, she's expecting him to be a potential dragon reborn. He can't even wield a sword correctly. And Lan took him down to like that. And also, then he demands that Moiraine say, "You're welcome," after he thanks her for saving Matt's life. She
Was a
just
dick.
sucked in all of that dark energy and put it out. And then he says, "Thank you." And she says, I'm doing this to protect all of you. He's trying to reassure him. And then he says, "You could have just said you're welcome." And just Rand. By the way, if you ask Brandon Sanderson, I put a tweet on the YouTube, I put a tweet up of a YouTube of Brandon Sanderson's podcast, where he definitely said he loved episode two Rand because it showed him at his true whiny self. He calls, and this is the guy who wrote the 3 last books of this series.
Hell
he
yes.
called Rand whiny. He said when he was a kid and read this series of Robert Jordan's, he was all about being for Rand. He thought that Rand was all in the right and everything. And then he grew up. And then he realized once he read it that Rand was a terrible person.
Yes.
So
I love it.
I am totally for the Rand hate. But this week it's
I've
Moiraine.
always been a big Brandon Sanderson fan, but that makes me feel even more of a fan.
Yeah.
Bubba, who is your
Yeah.
Rand hater tonight?
Well, once again, as a Rand defender or Rand fender,
Boo.
I don't think there's anything wrong with Rand. I do agree that you could have just said you're welcome. Terrible, terrible line. But instead, I'm creating my own segment within the Rand haters segment called Matt the Brat. This guy and I mean Matt with 1 T. This guy touches a knife. He was told, "Don't touch anything." "Ooh, I'll just touch a knife." Then he gets saved by Moiraine. He owes her a life debt. Just ask my buddy Jar Jar. And yet, when it's time to go, when it's time to jump in and go do your destiny, he pieces out. Weak Matt the Brat is the worst. And I'm so glad Rand will be free of his bad influence. And you guys will start loving Rand since he won't be
Oh my
around
God.
that terrible Matt.
Magnificent
No.
Matt.
I mean, Bubba, I
Yes.
mean, anytime you call Jar Jar a friend, your whole argument is just disqualified immediately.
All right,
No,
you're
hold on.
both
You don't know what you're talking about.
you're both completely wrong.
Wrong.
Who in this episode hated Rand the most?
Yeah.
It was the writers. They gave him the bare minimum screen time tonight. And
Oh,
that's
no.
probably part of the reason I rated this episode so highly.
Oh my goodness.
For like 3.5 episodes, Rand and Egwene have been pining for each other, and we don't even see them reuniting. They're
Until
just
the end.
they yes, no. We don't see the scene where they see each other and talk about how they miss each other. We see them together. We don't see that scene when presumably, as Bubba said, Egwene's important and Rand's important because he's the one who's stalking Egwene.
You just wait. Rand is such a jerk. He's going to wait until they're in the ways where it's nice and dark,
Hold on.
and then he's going to try and pull something on her.
Have you guys not negged Egwene? He's a neg.
All right. However, for tonight's episode, I have to give a second place.
Whoa.
And my second place goes to the hair department because they really leaned into Rand's, what I like to call double H.
Double H?
Yeah. Harpo
You don't mean
hair.
Harpo hair, do you?
Yeah, I do. Harpo hair. At the end of this episode, I was like, how have I never noticed that Rand has Harpo Marx's hair? So anyway, it was the writers and the hair department, and I want to thank them both immensely.
3 cheers to the show. 3 cheers to the show.
Good job,
Keeping Rand
guys.
the way he
Good
should.
job.
Excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, in true double P fashion, and I'm about to get a load of hate from some person that's down south, Bubba will be recapping this episode.
Oh, hell yes.
What?
Think
you
for
wrote
yourself,
this
that's what you get for
wonderful
being late.
recap, Bubba. You must share it with us.
Well, okay. So let's start in the part of the episode which let us know we were going to be spending some time with little Juel Gillmer. It's a flashback in Deer. And young Juel Gillmer, which as a non-book reader, you kind of had to put these things together. Her father is a fisherman. They've got a nice little hut, nice little cabin there on the river. And we can see very early on when her dad has got this net that gets tangled up and he's trying to straighten it out. And she's almost getting a bit frustrated with her dad. She's like, Dad, she's watching him struggle. And real quickly, she uses the one power to detangle it. This is great.
By the way, speaking about negging someone, way to remind her dad that he only has one hand. Like, but that's probably why he abandoned her, because she emasculated him.
That is such great insight, as if you didn't watch the episode. So that's great. So the one thing we know, and the show is now showing rather than telling, is we know how there is this females using the one power, this anti-Aes Sedai sentiment that's in the world. So when they get back after a very successful fishing expedition, their cabin, it's gone. And it's a bit too late. Her father on the boat had said, hey, you got to hide your power. You can't do this. But it's out. And the people there in Tyr, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly.
Yep.
They're not happy. And so this is tough. They don't want people like this in their village. They probably think they're witches. In our own history, it was Burn the Witch. In this case, it's Burn the Aes Sedai's house. And so her dad
pieces out.
Her dad, her dad puts her on a boat and it's like, it's not me, it's you. Get out of town. But he's doing this obviously to help her out.
Something that is also should be known is that there is a lot of sentiment against Aes Sedai. Maybe this will help explain some of you guys. Bubba, I know you specifically were very upset with why do all these people hate these Aes Sedai and what have you. This shows you that at least that it's not just in the two rivers. It's not just in one place or another. This is a pretty widespread thing. Tyr. You can go to the Amazon website or the Amazon Prime. You can find different maps there that they put up that are the same kind of maps that they put in the backs of these books. And you can see that this kind of Aes Sedai hate is spread all over the place. Was it his own village people? Obviously, they were trying to hide it from them, but could it have been, I don't know, children of the light as well? Is it a possibility that that's the case? We just don't know enough from this, but I just wanted to point that out about the whole large political spectrum of anti-Sedai or anti-Aes Sedai, which is kind of brought up also by Logain once he's brought before Swan as well. But we can get to that in a second when you get there.
mean, these village people may be hateful, but they can sure write a catchy tune.
Yep. It's fun to stay at the White Tower. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, this is a great way to introduce the character, give us this bit of backstory on it. But once again, I'm going to be tough on the show because I've seen the highs the show can hit. And I'll ask you first, Catfish, as a non-book reader, do you think the episode needed this flashback to set up Juel Gillmer, or would it have been fine just seeing her, come in as the all-powerful Amyrlin seat that she is?
Oh no, I think that the backstory was good simply because as Matt was saying, it gives us and as you were saying, it gives us a show not tell about about her. And I think it also helps. I mean, honestly, between that scene, the scenes that she's had in the what I'm going to call the throne room, and then the scene that she has with Moiraine, like she's like one of the better sketch characters in the show simply from one episode. And I'm not. I
That's a
mean,
good
yeah,
point.
that's a little bit of a slam, but this is. I feel like this is what we could use more of. Really seeing, these full characters, and but sadly, I think after all that, I don't know when we'll see her again. But just fascinating. I loved all of her scenes. I thought she was great.
Matt, do you think the episode needed this scene? Because I do question it. I'm not saying it was a bad scene, but I wonder if we specifically needed it right now. What do you think as a book reader?
I'll tell you what, and I can say this as just a non-book reader even.
Okay.
I think a non-book reader would pick up on this. It felt like that last scene between her and Daddy was all about him calling her daughter of the river and what have you. So just so that Moiraine could repeat it back at the end of the episode when she took her oath, in order to show just how deep their relationship was, that she knew something about her past. That seemed to be the most significant take out of it for me, other than the dragon fang and that stuff. So was it really needed? You could have gotten away without it, but I agree with Catfish in the fact that it really helped make her little sayings, like skin and salt or whatever that she was saying in other parts of the episode, really identify where that came from, how that was part of her. So
Okay. Well, I'm glad. Listeners, we always want to know what you think. Please reach out to us at Blockbuster on Twitter.
that's right.
Guys, let's get to it. And Matt, I'm going to come to you first before we even jump into this big story, which is a lot about the politics and the secret alliances within the Aes Sedai. But before we get to that, this, what Catfish called the throne room, it feels like the room where the Amyrlin seat actually is. I imagine this is a big setting for the books. And did this representation of it with the different colored groups of the Aes Sedai seated together all around it, did it match what you imagined from the books?
Well, here's an interesting thing, and this is what I was talking about when I was doing when we were giving our ratings. Tar Valon is not visited in any of the early books. I loved how Rafe later on, kind of when Egwene was in there and Moiraine was showing it to her, poked fun at how. So the Amyrlin seat sits on the Amyrlin seat. Just kind of the confusion of the way everything is described in Jordan's books sometimes. So I love that nice little poke was in there as well. But yeah, I loved it.
This is where I first was like, God, I really wish this wasn't so bright and flat, and it was more filmic, because I think it would be more imposing.
I can see that.
It is the lighting in the place, I think, is kind of rough and reads more sci-fi in your own scale there, Catfish. But it does appear very regal, let's be honest. You could tell if there were no human beings in it, you'd be like, okay, this is an important room where important things are done. So it feels like the episode starts with the trial. Now that we've had the flashback, now we're going to get to the trial. We've got to find out why these Aes Sedai did that gentling where Logain didn't even get a trial. And then we need to bring in Logain. And so one of the most fascinating things I thought as a non-book reader was the way that Siuan's Chancey, once Logain is brought in, she's like, he doesn't need to be chained. He's gentle. He's harmless. What could he do? And I would think, well, I mean, he could have a knife. He could come, grab you, bite you. He could do things. But these Aes Sedai are so powerful. No, it's like, take the chains off this bum. There's nothing he can do. And he snaps, he puts up a fight. He's trying, talking about negging. He's like, you're weaker than you've ever been. Look at me. I fought against 9 women and I took one out. Heck yeah. But of course, we know this, and the show's kind of done a pretty good job presenting this to us, that he is trying to pull a, if I act brutal and mean and
Death by cop.
Yeah. That's a great way to describe it. And so Logain doesn't get put out of his misery and gets dragged away. What did you think of that, Catfish? What did you think of that scene?
I'm just confused. Like, she says, Siobhan says he didn't deserve battlefield justice. I mean, I wanted them to say, we were trying to save our asses out there. Why don't you get off your damn throne and get your hands dirty? You know? I mean, does she not believe them? They can't tell the truth. It took 9 of them. And then, but I did love that, like, in turn, they're all like, all right, well, I got to explain it and I got to say something different. I can't just say, yeah, what she said. But I want to know why we didn't get the cutscene where the other 6 have to come up with also different excuses. But what I am confused about and this scene made me frustrated because I'm like, why am I being forced to take Leandrin's side here? She's a horrible human being, and yet she is right here. Like, I don't understand why Siobhan doesn't like. Yeah, I mean, it was either we all die or he gets gentled. Like, isn't that the trade-off you're willing to make?
They're not above the law. Everybody deserves a trial, Catfish.
Yeah, but is it trial over death? Like, I mean, what happened to self-defense here?
That is one of the oaths that the Aes Sedai take, is that they can use the one power in defense of themselves. So
I just understand why before we saw the rest of this episode and I saw kind of what was going on here, I don't understand why everyone else wouldn't understand that, like, this was self-defense.
Yeah. She points out at some point, I think it's in this scene, that code that they all live by is for them. It's not about, Logain may kill us or not. Well, there are lots of Aes Sedai in the sea. I don't think it's a very strong argument on Siobhan Sansi's part, but I think that she is the representation of the idea of the Aes Sedai as much as she is the leader of the Aes Sedai.
Okay, but
she is forced to take that position no matter what.
Is she forced to take the position that you all should have sacrificed yourselves and let this dangerous person go free instead of gentling him? Is that really what her position should be?
Well, they had captured him before without gentling him.
Oh man, okay. Matt is a great defense attorney. Good point.
Man. All right, okay. Now, what I love about this is like, I'm not going to just sit here and suffer.
No. Oh,
so I'm gonna tell some stories about Moiraine.
Right. I call Leandrin the queen of whataboutism. So okay, yes, I did gentle him, but what about Moiraine? She totally was doing this thing that is completely unrelated. But what about it, huh? Focus over there.
And then
she said, "Oh, Moiraine, look, there's a quarter underneath that bus."
But then Leandrin made a fatal error. She said that Mother's letting Moiraine off because Mother was also a blue. And then Leandrin forgot to add, but I don't see color.
Oh, how ridiculous.
She'd been fine if she just did that.
Yeah, Leandrin, how about this, Catfish? Mm-hmm. The way the show presents it in the order is like, Leandrin is about to take the punishment, right? The Siobhan was like, look, you're in charge. You're going to take the punishment. And, she's just upset. She's just like, I got to do anything so that it's not just me. I don't want it to all fall on me, the person who was in charge. Have we ever had a leader who wouldn't ever take the blame and would always blame their underlings?
Man, that sounds like that would be a real horrible experience. Then Siobhan, Mother at this point, that's what she's being referred to. Mother says, all right, you got to tell us, Moiraine, what have you been up to? And Moiraine says, I can't tell you. I cannot tell you. And then, damn it, Siobhan becomes the most hateable person in this episode. Is there anybody worse than a person who, when you say I cannot do something, says, cannot? or will not. Horrible,
Oh, man,
horrible.
yeah.
Boo.
Grammar
bring-
police, Sean.
This
know,
brings
right?
up another episode metric for me.
Episode metrics.
And
Okay.
that is, Bubba, let me just turn it to you.
Sure.
This is one that I like to call Tawns, which was the alliance was no surprise. You guys had called it last week. You thought that this plan was secret as opposed to rogue. And they really tried to play it up like Moiraine was being rogue at the beginning of this, and Swan was, really hanging on her. It's at that moment that you absolutely realize that they're in on this together. Is that correct?
I kind of thought that last week, and I never
Right.
doubted it. It didn't, why she doesn't come out and say it. It's just like why you wouldn't, I'm actually going through something like that at work where we're possibly bringing on a new vendor, but we're not allowed to tell anybody else in case the deal falls through. So, that's exactly what it felt like. I always thought Schwan Sansei was either in on it or like the head blue would be in on it. I never
Exactly.
thought Moiraine was completely rogue on her own.
Skip ahead.
One of the things I originally had written down that I liked about this episode was the double M.
Wait, double M.
Yeah, Moraine's mystery. And then
Ooh.
not only did I not know that her and Schwan were together, I realized later on that Moraine's mystery, what she was hiding, is exactly what she's doing. And I was like, wait, does no one knows this is what she's doing? So not only did I not know that she and Schwan were together, but I didn't realize that like her trying to find these people was a secret.
Oh, man. Well, I would say don't beat yourself up, Catfish. I would say that if I wanted to make you feel better. But
It's not something that you're likely to have said unless in jest, or ever will say to me unless in jest.
will say or can say.
Beautiful.
Okay, so this is a bit of this is the trial. She makes Moiraine pretty much bow down and say, "I get it. The Amarylline seed is in charge," and she has to kiss the floor. Holy smokes! Woo.
Hell yes.
Swan even calls her a snooty, stuck-up, highborn, piece of work.
The thing I'm most concerned with is of all of these Ajas that we see, the colors and everything, we don't
Right.
see one that's dedicated to cleanup detail. So who knows how many different kinds of bacteria are on that floor or whatever. That's
Oh.
really a punishment there.
What do you think
gotta wave
warders
your
are
hands.
for? Hey guys, but before we continue down this road of the political intrigue there in the White
Mhm.
Tower,
Yeah.
why don't we check in on the first bunch of our group that got to town first and the story of the sickness and healing of Matt with one T. So Moiraine and Lan, they go to check on Matt. They already know he's in town. Like we see Moiraine on one balcony. What's interesting, it looks like she's waiting for certain people to leave so she can go over there and check out these two would-be dragons as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Rand, who you guys really don't like, he
Mhm.
gets taken out very easily. He wants to put up a fight like, "Oh, no, you shouldn't be here." And that fight, blink and you miss it because Lan took him out so easily. And Moiraine comes in and she's better than WebMD. As soon as she sees him, she knows exactly what's wrong. And she pulls the darkness out. Ooh, in a bit when she's pulling it out and it's wrapping around her arm, it goes for her mouth like it wants another host. Oh my goodness. But Moiraine is that powerful. She TCB'd. Matt's going to be okay. Brand, who is being kind of tossed and turned, he must know, even though he wasn't there, that Moiraine saved his village in the Trolloc attack. And yet, because Tom Marilyn told him about the dangerous things of, ooh, be careful of these Aes Sedai, when they rip the one power out of a man, it's devastating. So finally having Rand see, okay, once again, Moiraine is on the good side.
And Rand is a jerk.
He does thank her. So what did you guys think? Matt, this feels like, once again, this whole time, as a newbie, I've been on Team Moiraine the whole time. This is just another example of how she is incredibly powerful. And as a blue, she may be supposed to go find secrets and find out information, but she's also darn powerful where she can rip an evil curse out of you. I loved it.
Absolutely. It's one of the things that's so wonderful about Moiraine being as selfless as she is the fact that despite her being that selfless, nobody likes her, in the world. It's one of those things. It shows you what a thankless job being a good Aes Sedai is.
Oh,
and I love that dynamic of it. I love the fact that no matter what she does, Rand, given the story that he had said, or that Tom had told him, given the promise that Matt made him make in regards to that, and he thinks that she's just coming to gentle him, I guess,
Right.
because Rand's pretty dumb, and that's what he thinks. And so I loved that he actually tried to defend Matt, as useless as it was, because Rand is absolutely useless.
Oh, my goodness.
Man, and then I love the fact that once again, Nynaeve was so resistant in telling them anything. Like in Tar Valon, like you can hide from an Aes Sedai anyway, and thinking that she's going to cure Matt on her own because, why didn't she just whack her hand down and yell no? Maybe something that could have done some good. Maybe maybe Matt wouldn't let her, because she wouldn't let her even look at his tongue last week. So
yeah,
well,
do we want to get to that? Because when Nynaeve and our boy Loyal show up, Moiraine just has some ice cold diss for Nynaeve. If wisdom is the title you claim, I suggest you start using some.
That is what I call a double N.
A double N.
double N.
Nynaeve knockout.
Man,
Oh,
you must have loved that catfish. Moiraine is pulled these people together. Admittedly, Nynaeve wasn't originally on her list, but the fact that Moiraine is trying to get these morons to wise up, I loved it. Don't you love an ice cold diss like that?
I do, and it was well deserved because there was a lot of an excess of triple N tonight.
No, wait, triple N.
Yeah, Nynaeve's negative attitude.
Right. This is one thing that, once again, I'm tough on this show because I know the heights it can hit. And Nynaeve's constant negative attitude and Rand's just not accepting Moiraine, it is really tough. And I wonder if instead of, I'll just say it, instead of spending time with Siuan Sansa, who it feels like we're leaving behind as we go on this journey, if we had spent that time learning more about Nynaeve, why she is so just hard-headed sometimes, or why Matt, who is, once again, we believe crazy involved with this sickness, why he doesn't suddenly, stop his negativity towards the Aes Sedai, which might explain his end move. I just wonder.
Well, I think, and perhaps it wasn't done well enough, but that scene at the pool, when Moiraine first talked to Nynaeve, and Nynaeve told that story about her adopted mother being rejected. I don't know how old Nynaeve was when that happened, or when she was told that story, but it obviously affected her to the point where she can't see anything about what's being shown to her. She's clinging to that, and you see that her emotion with the Beltane festival, with the lanterns, how much that those parents that she had that were adopted mean to her, and the parents that she lost evidently also. So I feel like that while Nynaeve's response to anything and resistance to anything Aes Sedai is irrational, I can see it coming from a very rational, emotional place.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess what I would say is I'd love that reinforced then.
Okay.
I would love that
so
reinforced.
they haven't done it enough. They haven't done it enough for you. Okay, that's fair enough.
But listeners, once again, who cares what in the world I say? We care about what you say. Please give us that feedback. We want to know. Let's jump back to the White Tower, if that's okay, guys. And we're gonna, we got to clean up. We got to cop in the bath. And Moiraine is in the bath when who comes in? And Matt, you'll have to help me out on this. I just wrote the leader of the Blues, the head blue, Aja. What is her? Does she have a title?
I'm not sure she has a title or not, and I can't even remember the character's name. Magaine. It was another M name.
Last week, Egwene hated her fancy exfoliation treatment.
Yeah.
The head blue complains, why can't we bathe somewhere else when clearly this is the fanciest
Oh my
spa
God. Oh my God. It's like
in
Burt
all
Williams.
the White Tower? I mean, come on.
Come on.
People, treat yourself.
It's all about remember, Aes Sedai means serve all, right? So those who serve all. So as Stepan told us, that all important order.
Now, what's nice about this, just like Game of Thrones would do exposition dumps with sexy ladies,
Right.
we have a sexy lady and another lady in this bath, and the other lady is going to do an exposition dump about all the bad things that are happening in the world.
Yet she seems to know what Moiraine has been up to. She knows about the ferry, right?
She knows about the ferry, and she says, we sent money on behalf to fix the ferry. And did she send a condolence card to the family of the ferry master and his son that they killed?
There'd be no one to pick up the card.
Yeah, we fixed the ferry. There's no one to run it now. All those people are dead. But okay.
Look, she's a job creator. There's an opening for a ferry.
Yeah.
There at the river.
Moiraine is reducing unemployment throughout the land.
Exactly.
Now there are things that are alluded to that as a non-book reader we can't, we don't have any idea what this would mean, but we're told ships are disappearing in the west. So I would assume that means bad stuff is happening, and if bad stuff is happening, I would assume that is somehow tied to the Dark One. But that was just a premonition, Matt. Without spoiling anything,
I'm very loath to say too much one way or the other, except for the fact that anytime an Aes Sedai is talking about spy stuff, for instance, Moiraine later on in the episode talking about the man that Liandrin is seeing in, what was that, north somewhere? Just pay attention to what everybody says, but don't expect to get any payoff for it anytime soon.
Sure thing. Okay. So,
sure, I'll write this down for 2 years from now.
Hey, now, no, I think that's fun. Why not have a little Easter egg? I think this makes a lot of sense. So, let's jump to our other possible dragon reborns who showed up in town. And so, guess what? Hey, Egwene and Perrin made it to town, and Moiraine knows about them. She's got all the connects, and she even pulls Nynaeve to them. Now, what is interesting is about this. Hey, Egwene asks about Mat and Rand. And Moiraine is very, Moraine's not going to say, "Oh yeah, they're a couple of hotels over." No, she's trying to keep her information, within her.
Well,
and
she's probably honoring the restraining order against Rand. Would be my guess. No, but seriously, I don't understand why she does this. And also, I talked before about a scene that seems like it's missing, the reuniting of Rand and Egwene, and it seems like also that scene, either in that scene or another scene, would explain why she's being cagey. Maybe she's trying to keep them apart just because she doesn't. The more people that she's got around would arouse suspicion, even though her most hated enemy already knows this information, as we hear later on. I just am not. I mean, maybe I answered the question myself. Maybe she's just trying to keep people in different pockets until she can get the F out of town.
Yeah.
Well, Egwene is seemingly pure-hearted and seemingly trusts Moiraine perfectly well, because she hands over these rings, and I wrote down the name of them somewhere. They're the serpent rings, probably the symbol in the logo of the show of the snake eating its own tail. And so Egwene is good, and we find out that Perrin, who has gone through some rough stuff, especially he had acupuncture on his back done. And so the yellow Aes Sedai have been helping him out, and so he's going to be okay. So it's pretty good. The team's coming together, and Moiraine is like, okay, Nynaeve, because she brought Nynaeve there. Nynaeve and Egwene, it's time for you guys to meet the head honcho.
Yep.
It's funny that we talk about how the different colors, they're the different factions, but when we see Moiraine coming out of the throne room, she's with the green woman that she was with that also got
Right.
scolded.
Yeah.
She's friends with the yellows.
Mhm.
So I mean, are we to sort of believe that it's really just the reds here, or does Moiraine just have random friends among the greens and the yellows?
It's an excellent question, Catfish. I think what you're finding, what you should look at, is the fact that all of these Ajas, these different denominations, more or less, of the Aes Sedai, do get along. They all follow under the leadership of the Amyrlin seat. However, there's always a bad apple in the bushel, right? And Leandrin can use her influence over the Reds to create different kinds of things. It all depends on where it's at. A couple of episodes ago, Alana, or maybe it was just the last episode, Alana warned that there were movements against this Amyrlin seat to Moiraine when she was having dinner on Moraine's bed, and those kinds of things need to be worked out. Also, you have to admit that Alana was doing her own investigation of Moiraine when she first saw her, asking, said, "What was the name of your cat? Hey, am I supposed to be asking, I'm supposed to be trying to figure out what the heck you've been up to." And Moiraine, even back then, is playing it up. Oh, so the Amyrlin seat wants to know what I've been up to. Even though the Amyrlin seat knows exactly what she's been up to in terms of looking for the Dragon Reborn. She's the only other one who knows that that's the mission. So I think that you have to look more at individuals and their influences over their own sect as opposed to sects themselves. Obviously, Moiraine has quite a few people in her pocket. She
does. She's a wheeler and dealer.
Yeah, she's got this yellow Aja, and I'm suspecting that where Perrin and Egwene are is more like a hospital, because you see an awful lot of yellow cloaks running around there. I saw at least 3 in that shot while Moiraine was getting briefed by the sister, the yellow sister that was briefing her. So I suspect that that's not all of them just there to work on Perrin and Egwene. I suspect that this is Egwene did the proper thing and said, "Hey, Perrin, your back's all cut up. You need a hospital. Let's go." So
see, Rand was smarter. He's like, "Matt, you don't need a hospital. Just lie in bed for a bit."
That's exactly right. That's Rand for you. We're not gonna get you any help. You just stay there and continue to get worse. I'll wait it out until you're dead.
One less possible dragon. He's like, "I'll be on top of this thing." Hey, let's go back to the White Tower, and let's get to the scene that kind of lays it all out here for us viewers. We see Moiraine in her room. Land comes in and he tells Moiraine not to disconnect from him. He wants to know where, she's going off and not letting him feel and understand what's going on. She's about to do it again. He tells her, "I can't protect you if I can't feel you."
Ooh, how's the work environment?
But listen, he's a warder. He needs this stuff, Catfish. It's part of the job.
Okay.
You got one job.
Yeah, I know, but still awkward.
So
she's got other things going on.
Skip ahead.
Well, what I think Moiraine needs is really just the ability on the Zoom call to turn off her camera.
I love it.
Because she is going to go to town. I thought this nightgown or outfit she wore felt really big on her. It was like I was seeing David Byrne in a Talking Heads concert. And she opened the magical door. She's got a secret space. This looks like a studio apartment, but wait, it's got a second bedroom. This is great. And oh snap, the mother's in there, aka the double Eshwan Sansei.
Oh, hell yes.
But apparently on Amazon, it can be premium pay TV. Aes Sedai After Dark. Hello.
Oh, yeah.
How fun. How great. And as a newbie, I wrote in the notes, I was like, did she disconnect from Lan so he wouldn't, feel her passion at night with another Aes Sedai on the side? She's getting busy with Amelin Chair, and she's like, Lan, you don't need these thoughts? Oh, man. And I noted that when they're together, that blue Aes Sedai wears red. Did you notice that? She's like a red, a blue in the streets, red in the sheets.
Oh, dun, dun, dun.
Yes.
And
I love that.
And as we've mentioned a bunch in this podcast already, the Amerlin Seat and Moiraine do have a deep connection. They obviously feel very passionate about each other, and they debate what they're going to do with the 5 candidates. They debate telling people their secrets, and they state something which the show has done a good job of conveying, in my opinion. Listen, the dragon will either defeat the Dark One or they'll join the Dark One, and that is the stakes. We love it.
Anakin Skywalker.
I love it.
But hey, listen, let's get back to this. Eshwan Sansei has been having dreams about the Dark One at a place, I assume a place called the Eye of the World. And she says, hey, the Dark One, he's weak. Let's strike now.
Great idea.
But apparently this prophecy, and Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, this prophecy says that anybody who comes between the Dark One and the dragon will die. Ooh,
sorry, Lon.
Right.
This is why Matt is so smart in staying behind at the end, is he not?
Oh, heck yeah.
Now, there is something that I want to point out is that they also talk about the fact that there was a specific vision that this girl, whose name started with a G, but
called Golai.
Giara.
Giara.
Or Girara, or something like that. Anyway, so evidently she had a specific vision about this dragon reborn that Moiraine witnessed. That's what Swan says, is that you were there when she had this vision about the dragon. And then Moiraine goes into all of these other stories that she's heard about the dragon, from various places. Everybody has a different legend all over these towns. So there's something specific, some more specific information that we don't have about who this dragon might be. Now, this one person who says the dragon could be 5 different people that Swan argues would the wheel spit the old soul of the prior dragons into 5 different people. It's all Rafe's big play here, which is something that doesn't occur in the books, really. But Rafe's big play here seems to be, who is the dragon reborn?
Catfish, who do you think is the dragon reborn of the 5 that we know about?
I mean, how do I say this in the nicest way possible? It's got to be that idiot Rand. Otherwise, why is he along for this whole thing?
Ouch.
He's completely useless.
I thought you were about to say it's got to be Matt, in the fact that he didn't join him. They're screwed. I mean, you're right. But Matt, as I pointed out, Matt and Rand are the 2 who haven't shown any ability to use the 1 power. So,
well, that's what I mean. It's got to be Rand. He's the only one. He's shown no power. He doesn't know how to interact correctly with the ladies. Doesn't know how to apologize.
But he'd seen that mountain, that volcano before. And Loyal keeps saying, hey, you're this type of person. And he's like, no, I'm not that type of person. So there's certainly more about Rand.
That the damsel said maybe no one
that's a good point. That's a good point. I forgot about that back in the 2nd episode. Good point. So, okay, how about odds? Do you want to go odds? So what are the odds it's Rand versus anybody else, Catfish?
Oh, I'm gonna give Rand. I'm gonna give him a 32% chance to be the Dragon Reborn.
So in a group of 5, that's pretty high. I would say there's a part of me, and I've mentioned on previous podcasts, I might have been spoiled on this, but there's a part of me that thinks, well, you've got the 5, and they said, well, all of them might be a part of it. I think that would be another kind of fantasy way to go. Like, we're all important. This group is important. We've got to stay together. And so the fact Matt didn't come, that would be a neat possible way you could go.
That would be my second highest percentage. Would be all 5.
These odds are brought to you by FanDuel, ladies and gentlemen.
I love
FanDuel.
it.
Hit us up with a sponsorship right now, FanDuel. We just did you a solid right there.
Right. Enter the promo code Dragon Reborn for
You'll get a special. You get $10 bonus if you do a parlay between Rand's hair and the Dragon Reborn.
So, okay, let's get back to this sniping, these political machinations in the White Tower, and just some great stuff. So Moiraine, like I said, she's pulled the 2 women and said, hey, you've got to go meet, you've got to go to where you're going to go next. You got to get to the White Tower. And what does Nynaeve respond to that, Catfish? How does she respond?
Nynaeve is like, wait, no, I'm gonna wait. I don't want to do this right now.
Right. Yep.
And Moiraine says, Swan Sanche waits for only one woman, and it's not you. Boom. I mean,
talk about being proud, loud and proud, baby.
Whatever the opposite of a humble brag is, this is it. I guess it's just a brag.
How about this? She's like, Swan Sanche only waits for one person who's got 2 thumbs and wears a lot of blue, and it ain't you. Okay, so hey, we're gonna get there, and she gets brought in, and I may have this wrong, but I think Egwene presents those serpent rings to Swan Sanche, to the Amyrlin Seat, but Nynaeve is still not nice. Nynaeve, because of this issue that you said, it goes back to her mother and everything. She's just tough. She's like, when you're done blowing smoke up our arse, what do you want? And then Swan Sanche, I think, does her best moment of the episode is when she looks at Nynaeve and says, listen, the wheel gives no F's about you, about me, about anybody. The wheel weaves as the wheel wants. And so tough luck. You don't have a choice. You have to do this. And in the end, the episode, they do. What did you think of that scene, Matt? These are 2 important characters from the 2 rivers meeting the Amyrlin Seat.
I loved this scene, and I loved Nynaeve's stubbornness. I loved her getting dressed down by the Amyrlin Seat, by Swan Sanche. I loved Swan's gratitude to Egwene for, doing the thing and returning the rings. We saw that they all need to be taken to the mini Mount Doom to be melted down in the Steppen episode. So I thought that all of this was great. I thought that these were words that Nynaeve needed to hear.
Maybe it's once you enter the White Tower, you become full of, clapbacks, because out in the hallway, Liandrin is telling Moiraine things like, oh, I know about the 5 from 2 rivers, and I'll do this, I'll do that. And Moiraine snaps back and said, I'll tell the other the Reds, Liandrin, about your boy toy. Oh, snap. That shuts Liandrin up.
Yes. Yeah, Moiraine tells the head blue lady that she's got some good, she got better information in the past. She's got some good spies out there. Moiraine hasn't been around for 2 years, and she's got the receipts. That is good info.
That's what a blue does, right? Where her head knows what she's been up to, and she knows what everybody else has been up to. Maybe that's why she has so many connections. Maybe it's not all friendly after all. Maybe it's one of these things where, hey, Yellow Aes Sedai, I saw you treating that guy haphazardly. I saw that you only, you used 2 stitches instead of 3. So be it with white power or whatever, 1 power or whatever. Maybe that's how she has all her connections.
Okay, I'm going to ask a question,
Call
and I'm
Moiraine.
going to ask Bubba, and if he doesn't
Okay,
know the
sure.
answer, I'm going to ask you, Matt.
Let's hear
Okay.
it.
So she says to Leandrin, I will tell the other sisters, and you know what will happen to you. Bubba, based on what you've seen in the show, do you know what will happen to her?
Well, you mess with Red, you dead.
No. If you are apparently one of the Aes Sedai, and you have a relationship with a dude.
One of the Reds, because remember, the Reds don't have warders. They don't bond with dudes. In fact, Leandrin, her outward communication is to hell with men, but it turns out, she's got
Okay.
a warder on the side.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Do you understand why this is a big enough threat to keep Leandrin silent based on what you've seen in the show?
Not what I've seen on the show.
Okay.
But if somebody was gonna tell about my secret affair, I'd be worried too.
But she makes it sound more like something very, very punitive is going to happen. So, Matt, do you know the answer to this question based on either the show or the books?
I do feel that I do know the answer. I don't think it's any of your business yet.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I remember I read about the show, that one of the reviews that said it's good, is that it holds out information that is until you need to know it. And I feel like for me to understand this threat, I need to understand that I should know exactly what should happen.
Yeah, that's just you being as whiny as Rand. Catfish, be patient.
All right,
my goodness.
I'll try
Worse
not
than
to be a
Rand.
Rand. But
Worse
can I
than-
be a Nynaeve?
I mean, look at that hair.
Tell me, before I go any further, tell me why.
Just say you're welcome, Catfish, that I told
Listen,
you anything at all.
Everybody go to YouTube, look at Catfish. You'll see some Double H, and you'll go, okay, now I get it. It's self-hatred.
Double H. Harpo hair?
Harpo hair. Yes, exactly right. Hey, let's get to the big ceremony that we've kind of already talked about a lot. Moiraine and Siuan Sansa have set up this plan. Moiraine has to kiss the ring. She's going to be exiled. Everybody's going to turn their back on her. And now this, I think, is very important, as I said already, but I just want to reinforce it. Siuan Sansa says, like, when I say you can come back, when I do this, and I'm thinking to myself, well, what if Siuan Sansa isn't the Amarylline Seed anymore? And in fact, the oath that she's saying on the sacred oath rod says, "In darkness consume my soul." So that to me portends a lot of scary things. So Matt, what did you think? Obviously, I believe this sacred oath rod and these kind of words that she's saying have to play a big part going forward, because the show dedicated so much time and filmed it so specifically. So do you like this? Is this something that you feel is a very important story point? And if so, how did you think the show pulled it off?
I think this is one of the things that, as you've gone through these episodes, that you can piece together, and that is that I don't know if she mentioned that it's made on the oath rod specifically when she was talking to Egwene. One of the reasons why Egwene trusts her so much is because she had that talk about the 3 oaths, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same device that those 3 oaths that every Aes Sedai, when they make their 3 oaths, they make it on this device. But Bubba, I know that you and I even talked about this a little bit throughout these episodes, that it's important. Now that they both have made this oath,
right?
They are both bound by the magic that was created there to not be able to break that oath. So I love the way it was shot. I love the way it saw. I thought that this was going to be a flashback scene to Moiraine taking her oaths when she was younger. I thought that her hair looked different, and I thought, oh, this is going to be when she was younger and first made these oaths. However, it doesn't appear to be so. So I loved the way that all this played out.
Okay, so the mean girl stuff has to happen. Everybody turns their back. Moiraine pieces out. She rides away. And she rides away to something. Now, I'll say all this, Matt. You correct me if I'm wrong. She goes to a place I believe is called a way station. There,
Away gate.
Away gate, excuse me. So, way gate, everybody comes together. Hey, Rand and Egwene finally see each other together. Everybody sees each other together. Way, the group is here. And our boy Loyal is there too. And so, hey, guys, this is it. We're going to do this. A lot of the 5 potential would-be dragons ask a lot of important questions. So, like, if we're not the dragon, what happens to us? Moiraine's got to do a bit better.
She can't lie.
She immediately
She
makes
can't
eye
lie.
contact. She makes eye contact with Lan, and I'm like, everybody can see you, Moiraine. You're not invisible. Everybody can see you looking at Lan, and everybody can read your thought of, how should I say this? Well, we don't really know. That's not a lie. Let's go. Then she uses some powerful magic to open up this way gate. They've got to go far to wherever this eye of the world is, I assume. And this is a beautiful idea. Where they are, the sun's out, it's a blue sky, but when the way gate opens, it's this dark, cavernous nether world of who knows what. And I'm very excited to see. But as everybody knows, Matt doesn't go. Matt kind of makes a comical crack, I wish you had told me this ahead of time. Do I really have to do this? But the one thing that makes me kind of fed up with Matt is that, Matt, Moiraine just saved your life. You saw what happened in the 2 rivers to these 2 sisters of yours that you care so much about. It's time to, you don't have a choice, Matt. This is it. You've got to go. And Matt doesn't apparently go. And that's where the episode ends.
Okay, but look, let's just say this. I mean, these characters have been through some stuff.
True.
Except for Rand.
He had to put up with Matt. That's like, oh my God, nobody suffered
Matt has
more.
been through the worst, I think, of all of them so far.
Hold on. If you stick your hand in a beehive and you get stung, do you deserve sympathy or do you, deserve scorn?
No,
Matt was told don't
no.
touch stuff and he went and touched a knife.
Okay, it's not about whether he deserves sympathy. I didn't say he deserves sympathy. I
Good, he
said
does.
he's been through the worst. He just needs can I just have like a day? Just a day. He would make the right decision. So you know what? It's understandable. This is why I call him Double M.
Matt
Double
Murdock?
No, Mensa Matt, because he made the right decision.
M.
Smartest of all of them.
I want to see pieces of Matt in a Trolloc stool.
Oh. 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 Oh.
Tell us how you really feel.
I am kidding. But once again, I am so tough. I've been so tough on certain episodes, but once again, it's because I'm in the show's corner. I want to see where this goes. I want to go see what in the world the way gate is and what it does and what it can do. And so it's weird that once again here after this episode, it feels like we're watching the Moiraine show with her 5 interns. So let's go. That is episode 6. The Flame of Tar Valon.
Love it.
Valon.
Tar Valon.
A Victorian.
You know what? Some people think it's terrible to end on a cliffhanger, but that is certainly not the worst thing ever, is it, Catfish?
Maybe
In fact, there are things that are worse, right?
Yes, there are things that are worse.
Okay.
So, all right, so let's ask what's worse.
What's worse?
Oh.
And we'll put them up on the poll. First of all.
Oh, how did you think to go to what's worse? What a great idea.
First of all.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask this question, and then the 2 of you will provide the answer, and then we'll put it up on the poll, and we'll see what the audience decides. So
right.
I've got 2 what's worses for you. So
2.
The first one is someone who asks you cannot or will not, or someone who corrects you when you say try and instead of try to. What is worse?
Well, because Catfish that you have said will or could, will or can a couple of times, I think that's the worst. You've proven it by example of how terrible that is.
Are you
so
sure
that's
it's
my
not
vote.
just because you're tired of hearing me talk and anything I say is horrible to you?
Bubba, you've got this all wrong. It's the other one
Wrong.
because catfish is clearly a grammar Nazi.
Oh, really? Grammar Nazi? Oh, no. So you think the other option is worse?
I do.
All right.
Well, I'm going to say it's someone who says cannot or will not, because they are always more condescending than the people who say it's try to. They're just so condescending and you just want to slap them. All right, but
Man.
we're going to put that up on the poll and we'll
Yeah.
let our listeners decide. All right, here's the other what's worse.
Wait, there's
Oh.
another one?
This is a tough one. I couldn't
Okay.
decide between, so I had to ask two tonight. What's worse, having your lover call you mother or having your lover call you son?
You know, it just depends what mood I'm in. Oh, wait, you mean, in imaginary ways. Yes, like fantasy ways. I would never, do that.
Sure.
No, of course not. Well, I think, as a cis white male, I'll say having my lover call me mother. It just makes me feel awkward. Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Go ahead, Matt.
I gotta argue the other one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's worse to have your lover call you son, even though I was gonna say, I would perfectly be cool with someone saying after I'm loving on them going, son. That was awesome. But now I've got to argue that it's gross.
I've never had a problem with a lover going, good work, cuz.
Well, as long as they say good. All right, I'm gonna say, Matt. Even though you argued it horribly, I'm gonna
What?
say that simply because if someone calls me mother, since I'm a dude, I'll just
Yeah.
be confused. But if they call me son, then I'll be like, they really think I'm their son.
Yeah. Well, see,
So there we go.
I was half-hearted in it. You made a much better argument, Catfish. What about this one, though, guys?
Oh, a third one. This is incredible.
Oh, well, I've got one. What's worse, Catfish? Having the one power used on you to make you stay away from the ambulance seat, or having the one power used on you to mask your bond so you can't feel in on the ambulance seat?
I'm gonna say what's worse is having someone mask my bond because I want to stay as far away from the ambulance seat as possible. All the politics in there, it seems it's fraught. It's fraught being in front of the ambulance seat. You can get excoriated any time for something that's not your fault. So I'm going to say I'd rather have my bond wiped.
Bubba, why would it be worse to have your bond wiped?
Oh, well, for me, I think when my bond is wiped, it's very personal. And I don't when somebody sneaks up behind me and wipes my bond, that's I call the cops.
Gotta be using Charmin. Bubba, why don't you ask a question?
First of all, I just concede that one just because of Bubba's answer. I agree, no one ever wants to be snuck up on and have their bond wiped.
Listen to me.
At least
when I was at Catholic school camp.
At least wipe my bond. Don't back wipe me. Wipe me from the front so I can see it coming.
Listen, when my bond has been bidetted.
And now that's clean. All right, Bubba, what's worse?
Well, no, mine is, unlike you guys, I paid attention to the show, so mine's about the show. So I said, what's worse, having to kiss the floor or kiss the ring? What do you think, Matt? Floor or ring, what's worse?
I think I already made a case earlier in the episode that kissing the floor is worse because there is clearly, whether you guys think that the warders just have nothing to do or not, I don't see them in cleanup detail. And I don't see a section of the Aja for cleanup detail either. I don't think that follows under the yellows because they are just too high up on the scale.
Sure.
So definitely, I do not want to be tasting bacteria from 1,000 years on a floor.
Catfish, what
well,
about you? How do you
Since I paid attention to this show as well, I want to
Oh,
say
man.
this.
Yeah.
I'm going to take your question as kissing that floor. I would eat off that floor.
Well,
I mean,
3-second
that
rule.
floor is pristine. No, I would lay an entire meal out on that floor, a 7-course meal, and eat directly off that floor. I would
Dang.
pour wine on that floor and
Whoa.
lap it up like a kitty. That place is the cleanest place
Hold
I've
on,
ever seen.
you're pouring wine on the floor? Is this an infomercial at the MLNC? Like, look at the ShamWow clean up.
That's how clean this floor is.
Oh,
And
wow.
but it is debasing
Debase?
to kiss someone's ring. You are totally putting yourself subservient to them.
Okay.
And that's horrible. And on top of that,
And kissing,
that
and
floor
then,
is cleaner than my plates. That's all I'm
but
gonna
they're
say.
making you kiss the floor. That's not debasing as well.
No, because the floor is deliciously clean.
Man.
Folks, we're going to put all of that on the poll at Blockbuster on Twitter. And you can vote for me or you can vote against me, as you always do. Let's look at some of the polls. And we'll just
Yeah,
say
let's look at the polls where I won. I won in the polls.
Catfish won a lot of polls last week, and Bubba won the rest of them.
Oh, wow.
So let's see here. What's worse, being an Ogier or looking at an Ogier? Catfish was definitely the winner in this one. There were 1,400 votes on the 100 Twitter. 64.3% said being an Ogier is worse than looking at one, because being an Ogier and hearing somebody look at you is worse, obviously. Catfish says that it's almost like 9 out of every 14.
Wow.
Right.
Being an Ogier is worse.
That's a lot.
Right. Hurtful. Stop saying hurtful things about the Ogiers.
Yes, exactly. So how about what's worse for Egwene? This was an excellent question posed by Catfish. This is how he's winning all. Bubba, of course, won this one. It's almost like 12 out of 17 of you. Pardon me. 12 out of every 17 of you out of the 1,700 votes on the 100 Twitter voted that 70% thought that exfoliation was worse than calling or having to address a grown man as child.
Well, her being upset over getting her free exfoliation was worse.
Yes.
Yeah, she should have been thrilled, and she should have tipped. Always tip, people.
You gotta do it.
Here's another poll for you all.
Another poll.
Yeah, what's worse, protecting a potential novice from politics or letting an Ogier in the building to take that novice away? Almost overwhelmingly, 86.7% out of 1,500 votes on the 100 Twitter said poor admissions policies, letting the Ogier in was terrible. It's a triple P. And 2 other votes that one I kind of won.
Great, good.
Yeah, and that's because Catfish demanded that we ask, do you hate Rand? He didn't like the way the question was offered last time around.
I thought the poll was skewed and didn't provide results. Not only was I wrong, but I was dead wrong and got mocked for it.
Oh, yes.
No. And in fact, talk about metrics. This was our highest engaged with poll.
2,200 votes on the one on Twitter. 2,200 votes. Actually, Bubba wins part of this for the most part, because 63.6% out of 2,200 votes. It's horrible. Said no, I don't hate Rand. Catfish. There are so many people out there that are disillusioned. They just don't understand what's going on there. However, they're even more disillusioned because 27.3% of them also voted for who the hell is Catfish.
All right, well, pay attention to my 10-minute breakdown of my life story at the top of the podcast.
Right.
I'm
It's real
sh-
interesting how
I'm
you
sure
lived
it
on
will
that
not.
river.
It will not
Loved
be
to
edited
fish.
out. No way.
Yeah.
No way will it be edited out.
And yes, I hate Rand got 9.1%. We can move on to the last poll. Find what
right.
you guys are saying. But the last poll was Matt will never be able to say canonical correctly. That's double C. Which Catfish pointed out. I need to say it canonically or
All
canonical.
right.
Perfect.
But 73.3% out of 1,500 votes on the 100 Twitter said, I never will be able to say canonical correctly.
No, they just got proven wrong. You said it correctly.
Canonical?
Canonical.
Let's call the whole thing off.
Oh, man. This guy's back.
What do you mean, Pat? What do you mean? Is it Pat Man?
This guy's back. Somebody read this stuff.
All right,
Sure.
I'll read it since Bubba took down the whole episode. He said, "Great podcast episode covering episode 5 of Wheel of Time." He said, "I appreciated you covering my feedback.
Oh, of course.
I do love the Rand hating segment, even if I am supportive of Rand, who is clearly the most Joffrey-like of all the characters. Joffrey carried a crossbow.
Had to pull the Joffrey card.
Yeah, Joffrey carried a crossbow. Rand is an archer. Both lads have complicated relationships with lovely ladies, etc. Who else is more representative of his grace in the show? He said, I especially appreciate the careful discussions Matt has being a book reader and not spoiling Bubba or me, another non-book reader. He says, along those lines, I'm interested in something Moiraine was telling Egwene in the second episode about the 3 promises that the Aes Sedai have to live by. It sounded like this was a requirement negotiated by some guy. Egwene casually mentioned some fantasy dude named like Arthur Hawkwood or whatever. I don't recall exactly.
Man, the worst.
So it felt like to me like there are political restrictions in place on the Aes Sedai, which would explain why the White Cloaks aren't besieging Tar Valon. But White Cloak extremists are free to act against individual Aes Sedai out in the world. I'm okay with not knowing the entire political setup in this world at this point, or even the geography. That's maybe a Game of Thrones listener complaint, which makes a lot of sense. I basically know that Gai'don is in the south, maybe. Tar Valon is a month east of 2 rivers, formerly Mandragoran, and Trollocs are usually further north. I assume over time I'll have a better idea of where things are and who's in charge where. Thanks for the coverage, and I appreciate Bubba asking questions. And it was a joy hearing Catfish bring his savoir-faire to the latest podcast.
Wow.
You got more of that this particular podcast. Pat, man, thank you for your thoughts. I love them all. And you are right. The Aes Sedai did make a pact when at one point the Tar Valon was sieged by a group of people, and so they negotiated these 3 oaths. And as Swan Sansei pointed out in this episode, their laws are to govern them, not to govern the likes of Logain. So excellent YouTube feedback.
Great.
Neil Luddite, who maybe if we'd have read this like 3 weeks ago when we got this feedback rather than now, it would have been more appropriate. But they said, you guys should cover the new Cowboy Bebop live action series. It's way fun. And it's way dead, evidently, according to Bubba and Catfish, unfortunately. But
yeah, it was out a month and it got canceled. Now, I would say that Matt and Catfish, they have never canceled the show they have never covered a show that's only been canceled after one Penny Dreadful season. So that's shocking. But Neo Luddite, you are correct. Admittedly, I only watched that first episode, but Cowboy Bebop did look very fun.
It was. I thought it was fun too. You know what I think the problem was, just like this show, like any show that's based on another thing, there's just too many expectations from the people who like the original, and they had to change it around. I watched one episode and thought it was fun.
Yeah.
Also, from last week's podcast, we got a great comment on YouTube. Again, leave comments on YouTube. If you're not finding the YouTube podcast, simply go to youtube.com/C/double, the word double, the letter P, media.
Yeah.
Our old friend Null Test Channel says, agree with Bubba, cheap looking episode.
Ooh.
Wait, I thought that was me. I thought I was the one who was saying that.
Well, I
Damn
think we
it.
were both a bit tough. But hey, let's get to, we got a couple more feedbacks here. Priscilla TV on YouTube wrote, guys, it's so good to see Catfish joining you on the
thank you.
podcast.
Thank you, Priscilla.
Priscilla says, I loved episode, and I believe she's talking about episode 5. The last years have been so rough. So trying to speak and process grief is always touching to me. I'm very much enjoying The Wheel of Time, especially because they are trying to speak about so much. The show might not always hit the mark, but I appreciate they are at least trying. Then Priscilla says, for the rant hate, episode 5 was very low on the rant hate scale.
I agree.
If she had to vote, she would say Logain. The false dragon is a hater. He laughed at Matt when he saw him on the balcony there in the parade through town. But Logain completely ignored Rand's presence.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah, Team
Brand and
Logain.
difference, baby.
Team
Brand
Thank you,
Logain.
Priscilla.
Yeah, and a real person who actually exists. That's their
Yeah.
name.
Yes. What did they write, Catfish?
Why do I owe you $37? And who did you rope in to become a real person who actually
I
exists?
can't believe this important feedback wants you to give me 37. I'm specific, real person who actually
It
exists.
really is specific. I'm trying. Now I'm racking my brains to figure out why I owe you $37.
I don't know, but real person, thank you so much. Your gifts from the world of Coke are coming.
Okay, real person, explain to me why I owe you Bubba $37.
Yeah, I'm sure they're too busy to do that. Just do real person a solid, Catfish. What the?
We got to bust some Balfe, and
great.
I was lazy this week.
What?
There's way too much because Catfish hates all of the music from this week's episode.
Rand.
Terrible.
I'm going to instead talk about some music from last week's episode regarding Perrin. So this time around, I wanted to concentrate on a theme that we've actually been hearing throughout the course of the season regarding Perrin, and more specifically, Perrin and the wolves. And it's a pretty simple motive. There's a bass line that kind of happens, and there's this really just a 2-note melody that happens. But we've heard it just about every time Perrin has encountered the wolves, and it's really almost just about Perrin himself as well. On the original First Turn soundtrack that Lorne Balfe first released before the series came out, there was a track on there entitled, oh boy, I'm going to get this old tongue stuff wrong, but Al-Kiare Sai? Al-Kiare Se? Al-Kiare Si? Again, I'm not a Wheel of Time expert, so please don't hold my mispronunciation of the old tongue against me. Well, you can if you want, but nonetheless, that was what it was titled, and that translates basically to Golden Eyes. And, of course, now, after episode 5, we've seen Perrin with golden eyes, and that's where you first heard it. If you've been keeping up with Lorne's releases of the soundtracks that come from the show itself, Volume 2 has a cut that we heard underneath the scene where him and Egwene escaped called Wolf Ambush, and you can hear that theme there as well. It sounds like this. Not really a whole lot to it, is there? One of the things that it really does well is the fact that the two bass lines create what we call a dominant chord kind of feeling. Not important that you remember the name, just know that it feels like it needs to resolve somewhere, because when you put those two notes together, they tend to want to resolve towards somewhere. They can stand on their own. Lots of music uses dominant chords as the tonic, as the home sound. But in scoring and in classical kinds of music, it typically feels like it needs to resolve somewhere. The other thing that happens is the fact that even though that bass feels like it needs to resolve somewhere, it doesn't. But the melody resolves. It starts from what we call a suspension. And again, you don't need to know these names or anything. It's just that based on the bass note and that first note, it feels like it needs to resolve down to the note that it does resolve to in order to fit that chord. So, it creates a lot of tension and a mild bit of release, because the tension is about whether the wolves are helpful or hurtful, but the resolve tells us that the wolves are helpful, not hurtful. And again, it's been used consistently throughout the series. The first time that we actually heard an allusion to this motif or theme, that you want to, whatever you want to call it, was when Perrin was looking at his leg, and then all of a sudden the wolves were there, and then the one came up and licked his leg. And we definitely heard it in episode 5 once the wolves started attacking, and actually just slightly before that as Perrin became his golden eye self. So that tells us that this theme is about Perrin, as does the title from the First Turn soundtrack that Lauren Balfe released before the show started. If you want to hear the full version of that theme that played underneath Egwene and Perrin's escape, look for the Volume 2 official soundtrack from Lauren Balfe. It's his latest release as of the time I'm recording this. You can find that recording, Wolf Ambush, and that'll be the music that played underneath. Folks, we got to get out of here. We do, because Matt's blood sugar is running low, and Bubba and Catfish are tired of listening to him stutter over words. So, Catfish, if people want to talk to you about how much you love my musical segments, how do they do so?
They can hit me up at CJGman67, your 66th favorite CJG man. Hamlet is dead informed me that CJGman42 is a so,
oh my lord.
So CJG Man 67, your 66th favorite CJG man.
Moving up those polls, just like we're your 50th
Boom,
favorite
rocking
podcast
to
out
the
of
top.
15 covering the show. Bubba, if people want to talk to you about this stuff, how do they reach you? Spoiler free, by the way.
Yeah, let me say, if you've reached this long in the podcast, I want you to tweet at me at FittenTrim. That's FITTENTRIM at FittenTrim on Twitter. And I want you to tell me what your rating for this episode is, because if you've listened this long, you love the Wheel of Time, or you at least care about it. And I want to know your rating for this episode 6. So at me, everybody.
Love
and CC at Bust Blockbuster as well. That's how you can find me. Or you can CC at the word double, the letters PHQ. You might find Bubba there as well. Don't forget to send your emails to mattsaudioblog@gmail.com, mattsaudioblog@gmail.com. Or you can just go to mattsaudioblog.com and find all the links there for all the podcasts that I've been doing, including podcasts that are for the Double P. And if you are subscribed to any Double P podcast, tweet to at Bust Blockbuster your screenshot of you being subscribed, and you got a chance to win a free Wheel of Time t-shirt. Clean, because it doesn't come, it's on me, but it comes from me, not, whatever. See ya.
Part of Double P Media, doublepmedia.com.